All right, how is everybody doing today? Welcome here to the Just Ballin' podcast. And today we are going to talk about the draft lottery. And I'm going to coincide this with basically an ESPN mock draft reaction. They did a 2-round lottery post or 2-round mock draft post the lottery. And I'm going to be reacting to it today. I will have my mock draft over up on the Srosh channel, but pretty much I can kind of see what ESPN thinks about what transpired and what went down during the lottery. If you guys were watching my live stream on the Srosh channel, like, it was crazy. When I saw Dallas jumped into the top 4, I was going like, oh my God, what if, right? What if? But last year, I was just remembering that, like, the Rockets jumped into the top 4. They ended up at 3, right? Like, it's not a guarantee they're going to get a top 2 pick, even if they move into the top 4. And then you see Charlotte, and then you see Philly, and then you see San Antonio, which means Cooper Flag is going to be a Dallas Maverick, which was just insanity. And I know a lot of people are saying the NBA is rigged. I mean, it'd be so hard to pull that off. In general, I don't believe it is rigged. I do think there are some lottery fixes they could make, and we could talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, the Dallas Mavericks just won the draft lottery. They have the rights to draft Cooper Flag. ESPN just dropped their mock draft. Let's just talk about the NBA draft, and I'm hyped to dive into this. And yeah, I think, like, for the lottery too, I mean, no team that has had the worst record in the NBA, like the Knicks in the past, the Pistons, the Jazz this year, have ever gotten the #1 overall pick with the new odds. And I'm okay with that, but I just think, like, I don't know, if you want to have competitive balance in the NBA, Cooper Flag should not be on the Mavericks, right? He should be in Charlotte, Washington, Utah, or Brooklyn, basically. And that did not happen. In Philadelphia, who did not need Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe, San Antonio did not need Dylan Harper, are the teams picking there in the top 3. So I do think there is a way that the NBA can kind of rework this and still steer away teams from tanking. Like, I really like what the MLB draft lottery does, where you can't be picking in the top 5, I believe, in back-to-back years. I actually think that that's a really good implementation, and then you can really skew the lottery odds more so into the top 5 teams. But yeah, if you're a team that is a kind of repeat offender, better lack of term there, but you're always picking there in the top 5. You can't get it multiple years in a row. Like, if you follow baseball, the Chicago White Sox were one of the worst teams in MLB history last year. They can't be picking, I think it's in the top 5. It may even be the top 10 this year. And we're going to see the same with the Colorado Rockies next year. Like, the San Antonio Spurs got #1 in 2023. They got #4 in 2024. They should not be allowed to be picking in the top 5 a third year in a row, in my opinion. And the Washington Wizards, I mean, where were they picking in 2023? They were outside of the top 5. They were #2 last year. They should be in, or allowed to be in, the top 5 this year, or at least a better chance at getting it. I just think if we want competitive balance, it'll also bigger picture. Yeah, like, Cooper Flag is going to the Western Conference when we want to make the East more competitive. And the Spurs, and Dylan Harper is also going to the West too. And who knows where Giannis is going this offseason. He may go to the West. Jason Tatum, I'm recording this before the injury news. He could be out all of next year, and the East is just going to be kind of a laughing stock. So, yeah, we're going to hop into this 59-pick mock draft. The Knicks got hit with the tampering back in the summer of 2022, so they do not own their second, but they will have the second of the Memphis Grizzlies this year. So I'll hop into this Cooper Flag #1 overall pick. I mean, makes a ton of sense. No surprise there. There's just so many possibilities that really can change the landscape of the NBA from this. I think the Mavericks, I mean, I've talked about it kind of extensively so far, but the fact that they just got this life raft and the ability to just change their future by getting so lucky with a 1.8% chance, and they get the lottery odds on their side. They take Cooper Flag. You have an elite defensive duo out of the gate with Anthony Davis and Cooper Flag. And I think with Cooper Flag here for the next at least 8 years, you can trade away PJ Washington this offseason because he's due for a contract in 2026. You don't really need him as much anymore, and I think teams will value that defense, and you can maybe get somebody a lot cheaper. Maybe you can get a first-round pick in this year's draft for PJ Washington. You can also get a point guard that can maybe be somewhat of a bridge point guard until Kyrie is back later in the year. You can now trade Daniel Gafford, who is a free agent at the end of the year, and now Flag, AD, Lively. That is exciting going forward, and you can also run out some lineup iterations of, like, Najee at the 3, Cooper Flag at the 4, and AD can bump down to the center spot, which I know he doesn't like to play as much, but at least gives you that opportunity if you get a nice return for Daniel Gafford. I know, like, Mavericks fans on Twitter were kind of saying Daniel Gafford for Austin Reeves. Now, I actually think in some way, shape, or form that idea could make sense. I don't think the Lakers should do that. I think I would hold on to Reeves, but I don't think the Mavericks and the Lakers are going to make a trade with each other for a little bit. But yeah, this just changes the NBA and what the future is going to hold for the Dallas Mavericks. I don't think that they are going to trade out of this pick, and they get somebody that is a true two-way superstar as a prospect that is going to be an immediate impact player from day one. I think he could be on an all-defensive second team in his first year. and he's going to play for a winning team. Like, the Mavericks are going to be good next year. At least they should be. We'll see what type of moves they make this offseason, though, because they have a lot of depth right now. Like I said, PJ and Gafford could be on the move. Do they see what the market is for somebody like a Klay Thompson? And you got Max Christie, you got Jaden Hardy. You have a ton of talent. Brandon Williams just got into contract for this year. I just can't believe that Cooper Flag is going to be on the Dallas Mavericks in 2026 and for the next 8 years, basically, until they trade him maybe for Alex Sarr down the line. No, just kidding. So, number 2, Dylan Harper to the Spurs. No shocker here. This is a fascinating team to get number 2 because the San Antonio Spurs really don't need the second overall pick, right? Like, they don't need Dylan Harper. You have Stephon Castle. You traded for De'Aaron Fox last year. It's just like, this is a good problem to have. Now, they could dangle this in a Giannis trade. I don't think you need to give up number 2 for Kevin Durant. There's a scenario where they draft Dylan Harper 2 and still trade Vassell or Johnson and all that draft capital or so in for Kevin Durant to put him next to Wemby. And I think it would make sense for them to bring back Chris Paul in a 1-year deal next year if Chris Paul is still willing to play, and he could be a good veteran in that locker room for this team. Now, is Dylan Harper okay coming off the bench right away? Will his dad get involved with that? You don't know. You don't know. Like, Harper may want a bigger role. Do you now feel okay trading Castle in a Giannis trade? Like, that's a potential idea, because I do think Harper is a better prospect at least than Castle was, and I think he could be a better player long term than Stephon Castle, just because I trust the scoring ability a little bit more. But yeah, they're a fascinating team to get number 2, and they can keep the pick, they can trade the pick. They could dangle it for Devin Booker, they could dangle it for Jaylen Brown, right? Like, what if they traded number 2 for, it's not happening, right? It's not happening. I don't know. No, it's not happening. But either way, the San Antonio Spurs getting the number 2 overall pick. Like, they didn't really need the second overall pick, right? They didn't really need it. I don't think they really deserved it because they got blessed with the biggest lottery odds of all time back in 2023 to get Wemby. I mean, they made the right pick in Castle last year. Like, 3 teams could have taken Castle. So I'm not going to fault them for that, right? Like, they made the right pick there. Just kind of crazy that it is kind of wild that they have the second overall pick. And I think the draft could start at 3. Like, I think it's no matter who's picking 1 and 2, it's going to be Flag and Dylan Harper. But I think the draft starts at 3 because I believe, okay, so he is Ace Bailey going to the Sixers. I mocked that as well. I truly believe, though, if they're still trying to maximize the Embiid era, which if Embiid is healthy, right, from day one, he's had a lot of time off this year to rehab and recover, and he's going to have the whole offseason, no Olympics. If he can show that he can be healthy, Kawhi Leonard type healthy this year, right? He doesn't need to play 70 games, plays 50 games, but he's good to go in the playoffs. I think you want to maximize that window with VJ Edgecombe. I think the Sixers, though, are a fascinating team as well, like San Antonio, where they could trade this pick. Now, people could throw out that they could move Maxey in this pick for Giannis, or they can move this pick in Paul George for Kevin Durant, stuff like that. I don't know if that's really what's going to happen, and I think Daryl Morey wants to make a selection here. And I think what they would do is Morey's going to be like fascinated by Ace Bailey and what he could bring to this team, both right now and in the future. And do they need another guard? Because Edgecombe, I believe, is like 6'4", 6'3" without shoes. So I think he's at around 6'4" in shoes. But I think that's a fine issue to have. Like I said before with Dylan Harper in San Antonio, you can have Maxey, McCain, Edgecombe, and Quentin Grimes. Depth is a good thing in the NBA. We're seeing how much that is paying off for teams like Minnesota and Indiana in the playoffs and OKC. And I think Philadelphia could really use the depth no matter at what position, because we saw how much it crumbled this year with the team. Or they can look to trade down. We could talk about trade ideas with like the Brooklyn Nets. Could the Brooklyn Nets try to go up to get Ace Bailey at number 3, or they really like Jeremiah Fears or somebody like that, or Tre Johnson even? The Sixers trade down and they can maybe get Cam Johnson in a deal, and they could take somebody more projected as a role player like a Con Murray-Boyles or Rasheer Fleming or Derik Queen or somebody like that. So if the Sixers stay at 3, though, I think that's what they would do right now until we learn more like intel or how their private workouts go and stuff like that on the combine, which is currently going on right now. So we got the Charlotte Hornets here at number 4, VJ Edgecombe. Yeah, I'm sure like this isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but I think this is the right pick as well. I also made this selection in my mock just because VJ Edgecombe is going to be a good defender, in my opinion, on the point of attack right away. I think he can guard probably the team's best backcourt member out of the gate. He's an insane athlete. He's tested out super well at the combine, and that's no surprise if you watched any of the Baylor tape this year. He jumps out of the gym, can run in transition very well, and I think LaMelo and Brandon Miller like to play fast at times, so I think he could fit that system very well. I like him playing under Charles Lee on the defensive end of the floor, and I think this is the right pick. I think you could think about Tre Johnson here as well, but I think we need defenders here in Charlotte. There's also the Kon Knueppel idea if they do trade Mark Williams this offseason. So that's all on the table. But I don't disagree with Jonathan Givony or Jeremy Wu here. I would have that. So, okay, so we have Jeremiah Fears, number 5 to Utah. This is where I disagree a little bit. I think Tre Johnson is probably the best player available here at number 5. and I think makes a lot of sense for Utah. Now, I'm not saying Isaiah Collier is the long-term answer at the point guard position. At times this year, he was inefficient, which is a thing with rookie guards. But he was a very talented passer out of the gate, which I honestly expected the opposite. I thought the scoring was going to be what kind of flash in the rookie year, and the passing was maybe going to come if you watched what he did at USC. He was a late first rounder in 2024. And I think the world, I mean, like, they can get anybody in that next tier here, right? They can maybe like a Derik Queen. They could really like a Fears. I think Tre Johnson can make a little bit more sense. If I were Utah, I would really see if you can move Lauri Markkanen in this offseason. It sucks you dropped to 5. I feel for you Jazz fans after the terrible year you had. And you guys have never, I think, had the number 1 overall pick. I know they were kind of actively tanking, so like, maybe you should have been a little bit more ethical with your tank. It doesn't matter, right? It's 1.8% chance got the number 1 pick. But yeah, Fears, I think, could be a talented playmaker one day. I think it's going to take some time, and playing under Will Hardy in Utah is a great spot for him. We can learn and grow. I don't think he's going to be an immediate impact like player for not a playoff team right away. But I do think over time, though, he's young, he's raw. He'll really figure it out because he can play fast. And if the decision-making can just get a little bit more quicker over time, he could be a very talented playmaking 1. I like Tre Johnson here, especially if you move Lauri Markkanen. I think Tre Johnson, Collier, and George could be a nice rotation of guards in the backcourt. And I think Tre Johnson is one of the best shooters in this draft as well. And I think he's pretty safe. And the ceiling is a lot higher for Tre Johnson. So at number 6, we have Washington getting Tre Johnson. That's what I would do if he does fall here. I think they could also, like, if Tre Johnson's off the board, they could look at point guard. They could look at Caspers. They could look at Jeremiah Fears. We'll get to Jase Richardson, who didn't really measure out well. He's kind of on the shorter side for a basketball player. But Tre Johnson going to Washington also makes some sense. Now, him and Bub, I wonder how that works out because neither one of them is like a true 1. So how can you put them out there together? Could you trust Bilal Coulibaly to maybe initiate a little bit? Or are you really going to have like Marcus Smart out there at all times, who's not really the best passer in the world, right? Like, you don't really have a true point guard on this team. Jordan Poole, not like a true point guard either. So now we have a lot of guys that want to score the basketball. I think that may crowd this backcourt a little bit. Now, we could see if a Jordan Poole trade happens this offseason, they could bring in a veteran point guard. And I like Tre and Bub getting their reps this year for a team that is, I mean, I don't think Washington is going to be picking outside the top 8 next year. So they're going to keep their picks. So they're going to try to get a top player in the 26th draft. But I think Tre and Sar can run some pick and rolls together. I think I would look at, I mean, if Tre's on the board, I'm fine with that. But I do expect Tre Johnson to be off the board at pick number 6, if we're being honest. So come on, Maluach going to the Pelicans at 7. Yeah, I had Jeremiah Fears here. I see the appeal because I think Kaman could be a lot better of a defender than Yves Missi one day. But honestly, Yves Missi, dude, the athleticism was on display this year, which I did expect coming out of Baylor. Kaman, though, is so new to the game of basketball. I think he started playing in like 20, I don't even know. It's like the late 2010s. And I don't even know. Did they mention it here? He started playing, I think, at like 16 years old. And I think he measures out pretty similarly to Rudy Gobert and how he was coming over into the 2013 draft. And he can cover a lot of ground defensively with his wingspan and his length. Him and Zion, though, could really have a physical front court inside. We'll see if they trade Zion this offseason. I just don't know if that's the type of player. I mean, do they want a connecting piece in Kon Knueppel? Do they want a point guard with DeJounte Murray suffering that injury this year? And do they look at somebody like a Kasper Jakucionis? So we'll go on to 8. Brooklyn getting Kon Knueppel. See, like, I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I mean, you're getting a good connecting piece here. Kon plays very hard, super competitive player. It's just like the Nets. They were supposed to get a top player in this year's draft, right? And they won maybe too many games this year. And they're going to end up with, I think, one of the best, like, or one of the players with the highest floors in this class. I think they need to go on ceiling, or go ceiling pick here. Kon Knueppel's a fantastic shooter. I think he's the best shooter in this draft. I also think I would want to see Kon on maybe a team that could use his connecting ability out of the gate. Like, I'd like to see him in New Orleans. I mean, it's not going to happen in Philly, I think, at 3, but I think Philly would have been a good spot for him. San Antonio would have been a good spot. Dallas would have been a good spot. Houston would be a good spot. Maybe even Portland. I think teams that are going to be competitive next year, I'd like to see Kon Knueppel with, and maybe they still go after Wemby this offseason. Or excuse me, not Wemby. Giannis this offseason. Maybe that ends up happening. But yeah, I was just envisioning Kon in San Antonio. So at number 9 here, we have Toronto going Colin Murray-Boyles. I think they could go big here, and I think this is the type of player that Masai likes. I think they saw what they got in Mobo last year. A little bit undersized big, but incredible defender, works very hard on that end of the floor. And Colin Murray-Boyles is the second best defender in this class right now behind Cooper Flagg. Maybe one day, yeah, like, come on, Maluach's rim protecting you would take. Maybe Thomas Sorber's rim protecting you would take. But Murray-Boyles is one of the best defenders in this class. And if that shot can develop in any shape or form, I mean, man, we've seen like Scotty Barnes, who is not a good shooter at Florida State, develop his shot in the NBA by the Toronto Raptors. Maybe they think they can work on Colin Murray-Boyles' shot, which showed some flashes. And if he can knock down some threes, man, he can be like Tari Eason type in the NBA. I like that fit for them. If the East is wide open next year, they could take a leap. So Kasparis is going to the Rockets at 10. I wonder if they would take a lead ball handler, just because you got Reed, Shepard, who probably needs more reps next year. Fred VanVleet is most likely going to be back. Kasparis has some size on him, but I don't really think he's much of an off-ball player where you kind of have to play him at the 1. Maybe that's where they envision Reed Shepard more of a 2, and Kasparis is like 6'5"-ish. So you would have not like a super small backcourt if you, I mean, like, at times you got to worry about Fred VanVleet and Reed Shepard defensively in the backcourt. Even though VanVleet can definitely hold his own as a defender, you just worry about the size there, but then you surround them with Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, and you're okay defensively, right? And Dylan Brooks. So it'll also be fascinating to see if Houston keeps this pick. Do they dangle this in a Kevin Durant trade? Give Phoenix some of their picks back, and they can basically just get matching salary and Phoenix's pick backs for Kevin Durant, something like that. I think we could see an arms race for Kevin Durant between the Texas teams in San Antonio and Houston. So yeah, Kasparis to the Rockets at 10. I don't really know how I feel about that fit. I don't think I like it a lot. So Derik Queen 11 to Portland. Also don't really like this a lot. I mocked like Asa Newell to them a ton, and maybe Derik Queen. So I worry about Derik Queen's defensive ability, but if you have like Tamani Kamara at the 3 and Donovan Clingan at the 5, you know what? Maybe that's going to be okay for Derik Queen, who I think is a really fun offensive player to watch. The tape was really fun at Maryland because he can get downhill. He can dribble very well for somebody at his size, and he can run in transition, can run the pick and roll very well as the roller. And that could be great for Scoot Henderson. I mean, just the guys, like, I like Jase Richardson here. I know Jase Richardson measured out as 6 foot without shoes, but man, he can create his own shot very well. He's a good shooter, and I think that could be in play with Anthony Simons potentially on the market. I mean, you have Aiden, you have Robert Williams, you have Jeremy Grant. Is this just a roadblock for Derik Queen right away? I don't want to stump his development. And I know Robert Williams and Aiden are free agents after next year, but I guess you got to really be sold on Queen and Clingan, right? Can they work out together? But I don't really think Queen is going to be able to space the floor. So 12, Chicago getting Egor Demin. Also don't really know how I feel about this one either, because I feel like Chicago could look for a little bit more size, and Queen is off the board, and so is Kaman. Like, would they look at Thomas Sorber, who's got like a 7'6", I think, wingspan, or around that range? I mean, Rasheer Fleming also has a crazy wingspan. Carter Bryant has a lot of potential in this draft. I would look at those guys for sure. I mean, we don't really know what position Egor is going to be at the NBA level, because he was not a good shooter this year at BYU, and I know it was tough for him, like at Real Madrid, like played Russian style basketball growing up, and then came from Russia, and then he goes to BYU. It's a completely different ball game, right? And I think he needs a place with a good developmental track. And I would like him in Utah. I would like him in Brooklyn. I don't know if I would like him in Chicago. I actually hate this fit a lot, and I don't think he's going to go this high. But I feel like ESPN's been very high on Egor Demin. And Atlanta getting Jase Richardson at 13. All right, I'm glad that he still has Richardson here in the lottery, because I'm still high on Richardson, and I know they get more intel than I do, obviously, at ESPN. So they're kind of hearing what scouts like and what front office is like. And man, I'm sold on the shot creating ability. I think he's a really good shooter, and I think he's still young as a player where he's going to grow into like his style of game. And Atlanta could use somebody that can also create their own shot. I think there's some fun defenders still on the board, like Carter Bryant or Rasheer Fleming or Thomas Sorber for this team. But if they maybe part ways with Kobe Buffkin this offseason, realize that wasn't the best pick in the world for them, Richardson can kind of step in as a combo guard off the bench. Not really an initiator. So you're like, oh, wow, he's 6 foot, like 1.5 in shoes, and he can't really pass the ball well or initiate. But man, I'm sold on the tape. I'm very high on Jase Richardson. But I don't want to be like Kobe Buffkin 2.0 for me. Carter Bryant, 14 here to the Spurs. Yeah, I've been reading a lot that Carter Bryant is going to go most likely in the lottery or in like the top 16. And this makes a ton of sense for San Antonio at 14 if he's there. I think he could be in play at 13, 12, 11, even 10 if Houston doesn't think like they need to take somebody that needs to contribute right away. Who knows? Toronto could fall in love with Carter Bryant, who averaged 6 points per game last year at Arizona, but was a low usage guy, stood in the corner a lot. But man, the traits are there. The intangibles are there where he can be somebody that could shoot, defend, be strong inside, move all up and down the floor at a very high level. And it's a little bit of a development play. But man, I trust taking Carter Bryant then, like what people banked on Salon last year. We're taking Noah Essengay this year, or Behringer. Man, I really like Carter Bryant there with the top 16 pick. Okay, don't really like this one, but Nolan Traore, who had a strong end this year to St. Quentin over there in France, but going to the Thunder, I think it would make a lot more sense one pick later to the Orlando Magic. I just don't know why the Thunder would take a pass first point guard when you did that last year with Nikola Topic, who may also struggle to find minutes next year given how good AJ Mitchell looked this year. And you got Caruso and Cason Wallace and Shea and Dort and all these guys in the backcourt already. I don't like that pick at all. I think I would take Behringer here. I would take Thomas Sorber here. I would take Danny Wolf. I would take one of those guys. I would take Rasheer Fleming. There's a lot of guys that I would take here over Nolan Traore if I'm the Thunder. And if you want somebody a little bit more offensive base, like can score the basketball, think about Walter Clayton. Like Walter Clayton, I know has some defensive issues, but you throw him out there with Cason Wallace and Lou Dort, he's going to be just fine. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of Nolan Traore 15 there at all. Or even this guy, Will Riley to the Magic at 16. And I like Orlando just having, like, they just want the biggest lineups of all time, right? That's just how they operated. That's how they've been. They got to address two things this offseason. I think they need another ball handler and they need shooting. It stinks for them that a lot of good shooters are going back to school, like Alex Caravan and Isaiah Evans. I think there's a very high ceiling for Will Riley. I think he could have also benefited maybe staying at school for another year, but he's like 6'8", and he can have some crafty shot-making ability. The efficiency wasn't the best this year, but I think it was also tough in the Illinois system, and a lot of guys that are a lot older than him on that team as well, with like Boswell, and I mean, I guess Ivicic isn't really that much older, but either way, I think Riley does have a good chance to be a very good crafty wing scorer in this league. So I like that at 16. Danny Wolf to the Timberwolves at 17. I wonder how Wolves fans feel about it big. I mean, they're probably going to lose, I think, Naw. I think there's a scenario where they bring back Randall, or maybe, I don't know, man. What if the Timberwolves make it to the NBA Finals this year? They may have to extend Randall. Gobert is probably going to be here still. They want to bring back Naz Reid. Wolf does give them some versatility on the offensive end of the floor, where he can switch between the 4 and the 5 offensively. He can pass very well. He can roll very well to the rim, and he can shoot, and he can dribble very well. I just don't think this would make a lot of sense. I mean, point guard could be on the board for them here at 17 if they like Ben Seraph, the way that this board has fallen. I don't really know how I feel about him there. So I also like the idea of Rasheer Fleming, who's got like a 7'4" wingspan. If you're going to lose Naw, and oh my God, Fleming and McDaniels out there together. I know he's not going to be Naw right away, but I think that's a really good fit for them. And is a lot better wing long-term than like Terrence Shannon Jr. So 18 here, we have the Washington Wizards. Noah Essengay, fine pick by me. So before they had him taking Tre Johnson, I think Thomas Sorber on the board here at 18 would make a lot of sense for this team, but Essengay does have some very high potential. I believe he also shot the ball well to end the season over there in France, and somebody that can look like he could be a very good defender one day as a stretch 4. Man, he's 18 years old, and he's one of the youngest prospects, as they mentioned. He has a chance to grow in Washington, and Michael Wigner, who spent some time in OKC, could look to take that high upside pick. So Behringer going to the Nets at 19. If they don't go center in the top 10, I think they could try to snag one in this draft. And somebody that is also 18 years old, does have some really good rim protecting potential, but is very raw. Another French prospect coming over, playing in the Adriatic League. Man, this is like a high upside pick, and I'm fine with that with the Nets with their picks. I mean, I'm fine with them going high upside with all their picks, honestly, at this point. They have 4 first rounders. You take 4 boomer bust prospects. Hopefully one of them pans out, right? So 20, we have the Heat taking Lee McNeely. I mean, good value here at 20, given where McNeely was midseason. I think Miami could also look for a point guard or another shooter, so McNeely makes sense in the shooting department. I know he didn't finish the season well, but I think he'll be a fine shooter at the NBA level. Could they look at Walter Clayton here? I don't really think Ben Seraph is a Miami Heat type player. I would like Rasheer Fleming a lot in Miami. Cedric Coward, I think, makes a lot of sense in Miami as well. I don't know if McNeely, is he just your Duncan Robinson replacement long-term? But I think he's a better playmaker than Robinson definitely was, given Robinson was undrafted or second rounder? Undrafted, right? I forget now off the top of my head, because he transferred to Michigan from a smaller school. Now I'm forgetting. So Asa Newell falling all the way to 21 to the Jazz here. They take another big. So you got Kessler, Markkanen, Hendricks is coming back, Filipowski, a lot of bigs over there. In Utah. I think Newell should go a lot higher. I think he's got a nice touch around the rim. I think he can roll very well to the rim. He's got a big size, got a big frame, flirted a little bit with the outside shot, and if teams think they can fix that, he's going to go a lot higher in this draft because he can be just this big body guy that can roll well and space the floor. Thomas Sorber, 22 to the Hawks. He would go a lot higher if he didn't get that injury at Georgetown this year. Man, he moves very well on the defensive end of the floor. He's not going to be much of an offensive player outside of just rim running, catching alley-oops, picking up offensive boards. But Atlanta could use that at 22 with Clint Capella being a free agent, Larry Nance being a free agent. I like Mohamed Gay. Onyeka Okongwu started to space the floor late in the year, which was exciting. But Sorber has one of the longest wingspans in this draft, and he could be, I think, the second best rim protector after Kon Knueppel at the center position. So that's great value for Atlanta at 22. And what did they end up earlier? Jase Richardson and Thomas Sorber. Those are some of my guys in this draft, so I would really like that for them. Nick Clifford is a pacer. Also love that idea. We'll see if they're going to try to like make a big splash this offseason or try to shed some cap, but they're one game away from the conference finals. So they could run most of this team back. You had Nick Clifford, who's a fantastic rebounder as a wing, can crash the glass very well. Became a very good shooter towards the end of the year. NBA ready prospect out of the gate. Not somebody with super high upside, but I think could be better than Ben Shepherd next year. I think could be better than Jarace Walker just next year, maybe not long term, in terms of giving you good wing minutes off the bench. And you can never have enough wings. We'll see what the Mathurin extension is going to look like this offseason if they do extend him, but maybe they're thinking about life after Mathurin. I mean, I don't really like Hugo Gonzalez here in the first round. That's who they have going to the to the Thunder at the 24th pick. But if it's to the Thunder, I'm okay with that. Like, he's not going to play probably a single minute in year number 1. Maybe not a single meaningful minute in year number 2. Hugo has a lot to work on. Was not a good offensive player this year at Real Madrid. It's really the defensive upside. I've never really been sold on a first round pick. Like I said, OKC, it's their second first. They're already a deep team. I'm fine with this. Because if it's like a team, I don't know, like the Pacers or the Hawks that could really use a rotational guy with this pick, I would hate that a little bit. Orlando at 25 getting Walter Clayton. Okay, I love that for them. So who did they get getting? They had Will Riley and Walter Clayton. I like that. I like that a lot for the Orlando Magic in this draft. I wonder where Walter Clayton is going to end up. Measured out pretty small. The wingspan was okay, but a fantastic shooter. Not really a playmaker passing wise. Not really much of a defender, but can run the floor very well. And Orlando needs a shooter. And Walter Clayton is one of the best shooting guards overall in this draft. As the final asset, I believe, from the Aaron Gordon trade. 26, the Nets getting Ben Seraph. So they ended up getting, who'd they get earlier? Kon Knueppel. They got, who's the big? Behringer and Seraph. I'm fine with that. Those are high boomer bust guys in the strip. Well, Behringer and Seraph are, but Kon is pretty safe. So, you know what? That's not terrible. You got, I think, a point guard, which you should leave this draft with either Fears, Kasparis, Seraph, or Traore. One of those 4 should end up in Brooklyn. And I think they could take a flyer on one of the big men as well. If it's Kaman, if it's Sorber, if it's Behringer, fine with that as well. And then we'll see who they have at 27. I mean, they ended up getting Kon earlier, so they don't really need an SK, but like, I think Cedric Coward has a high floor, but they take Coward there at 27. I like that a ton. Rasheer Fleming is still on the board as well. Bang, they have Rasheer Fleming 27. That's fine with me. I would like Rasheer Fleming to get playing time next year because I think he's NBA ready. Was very productive this year at St. Joe's. One of the best athletes in this draft. I do think he's got to be a little bit more consistent, and the feel for the game needs to even out. It's going to be a whole different ball game going from kind of Atlantic play at St. Joe's over to the NBA. But Brooklyn, under Jordi Fernandez, love that spot for him. And I wonder if the Nets are going to maybe try to consolidate some of these picks, right? Like they're picking 27, 26, and what was it, 16, 19? Like they may try to trade 3 of those picks for maybe 2 more valuable picks or something like that. So at 28, we have the Celtics going Noah Penda. I mean, I don't really think the Tatum news is going to affect this pick at all at 28. They probably have their eye set on somebody specifically. They could look at bigs here. You do have like Maxime Reynaud still on the board, Kalkbrenner, Condon, one of those guys with Kristaps, man, not playing well in the playoffs. We'll see if it's because of the illness. Al Horford's getting up there in age. Cornette, they may not be able to afford in free agency if he gets like a little bit more money per year than I think he's making like $4 million now. So Penda's a really good defender, and maybe they like that upside for him, and also a little bit inconsistent of a shooter. So I think Cedric Howard would be a great Celtic there at 28. Jackson Lenneberg to the Suns at 29. I like that a lot if Lenneberg does go into the NBA draft, just because he is currently committed to Michigan, but I think is testing out the waters. I think Lenneberg and Coward should definitely be first rounders. I think Lenneberg could go higher for sure. So yeah, he'd be leaving significant money on the table from Michigan, man. That is crazy. That is crazy. Should have returned. Okay, yeah. Wild, but I think Lenneberg is a good son. If they try to compete next year, he can help them. And Adu Thero, going to the Clippers at 30, I think is also a Boston Celtic earlier on as well, just because he's a very good defender out of the gate. I don't think he's going to be a great shooter in the league. We'll see. But, man, he can run the floor very well, and he could be a good kind of defender to an already good defensive team. They could look at offensive upside. I mean, Harden isn't going to be there forever. Maybe take LeBaron and File on at 30. I don't hate that either. So we can go through a little bit quicker in the second round. So they got Minnesota taking 2 bigs in this draft, Alex Condon and Danny Wolf. Have we thought that through? I don't really think they need to take 2 bigs. Boston getting another defender at 32, Drake Powell. I like that. Charlotte going back-to-back bigs here at 33 and 34. Well, you have Diabate. You have Mark Williams for now. They may trade. Do we really need to take Kalkbrenner and Raynown? Could we take Cedric Howard with one of those picks? Could we take LeBaron Philon with one of those picks? Yeah, I don't really agree with that at all. But hey, I like Raynown a little bit more than Kalkbrenner. Coward to the Sixers at 35. I mean, you leave the draft for Coward at 35 and Ace at 3. I mean, dude, Coward at 35 is incredible value. Nets getting LeBaron Philon at 36. I like that. He can contribute as a scorer out of the gate, but also I think needs a little time to develop. Janai Broom to the Pistons at 37. Why not? I think they can use some more big man depth. And I don't really love Broom as a player in the NBA, but I do think he could fit the Pistons like slower style of play a little bit more. Markovic to the Spurs at 38. High upside pick there. Pettiford to the Raptors at 39. I think they could lead this draft with another point guard. Like Jamal Shead is fine. I just think like maybe as an initiator, and that's what Pettiford was. So you have Alex Tui from Australia to the Wizards at 40. I'm fine with that. Maybe can learn well from Kispert in the NBA. So Niederhauser from Penn State, who got called up from the G League Ignite camp to the Combine, definitely a draft riser right now. He's got him at 41. Intriguing. Sacramento going Chaz Lanier at 42. They're only picking this draft. Miles Uzan to the Jazz at 43. Like him a lot. Boogie Flan to the Thunder at 44. Another guard. Nolan Traore and Boogie Flan to the Thunder. I don't really know about that. Darian Williams to the Bulls at 45. I think I'd rather go for somebody else, a little bit more upside. I know not upside, but John Tonje, like Tyrese Proctor on the board as well. Cam Jones to the Magic at 46. I would like that at 26, so I'm on board with that. John Tonje to the Bucks with their only pick at 47. Keep the Wisconsin guys close, right? John Tonje should be a top 50 pick. I wonder if they're going to have Ryan Nembhard. I think he should be a second rounder for sure. Zakarski to the Grizzlies at 48. Maybe could have stayed another year overseas. Michael Ruzic to the Cavs at 49. You don't want to take somebody that can actually help you next year. I don't know. Because they're going to be a team that's going to have to make some big financial decisions this offseason with the second apron. Knicks, do they need an Eric Dixon? I don't really think so. I would like to take somebody with a little bit more shooting or defensive upside. And you have like any of the Duke guys or Kentucky guys, Brea, James, or Proctor, I would like a little bit more. Ryan Nembhard, I would like a lot to the Knicks as well. Are we just mocking a Nova guy to the Knicks just because? Miles Bird to the Clippers at 51. Not a big Bird guy. But at 51, I mean, any of these guys can pan out, right? Proctor to the Suns at 52. Love that value. I think Proctor should go a lot higher. Jazz taking Zion James at 53. Pacers, Kobe Bryant at 54. Let's not let that happen, man. That's just a perfect fit there in Indiana for their fast style of play. Dink Pate to the Lakers at 55. Hey, you want to go defense? There you go. Small, the solid shooter out of West Virginia to the Grizzlies at 56. Vlad Golden in this draft at 57 to Orlando. I don't really know if Vlad Golden should be drafted. Mohamed Faye to the Cavs at 58. Okay, so we're just taking guys that are not going to play for the Cavs next year. Maybe that's how you shed some money against the second apron. Take some stash guys. And then you got Hansen Yang, who I think is better than Golden, Faye, and Ruzic, and maybe Zakarski going 59 to the Rockets. I'm not going to say that's a lazy mock pick, but like the Chinese center to the Rockets, I mean, did we think this through, or is it just because of Yaman? I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of reaching there. Probably am. So, yeah, that is ESPN's post-lottery mock draft. Let me know what you guys think. I really enjoyed doing that, and if you guys did enjoy this here on the Just Ballin' podcast, drop a thumbs up. I'm going to do some Combine talk later this week. I'm going to have my winners and losers out on the Sross channel. And then I think I may react to some more mock drafts if you guys do enjoy that. And we could do some fun like mock draft trade ideas as well here on the pod. So make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you're following on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'll catch you all on the next one.